Good evening, everybody. My name is Rebecca Valera. For those of you who are watching on YouTube, if you're watching on Facebook, I know you already know me. So, hey, how's it going? So I am here and I'm going to be talking tonight with a good friend of mine. She's an appraiser. And so we are going to talk about appraisals and the red hot super fire market that we're experiencing here in the Dallas-Fort Worth area, and a couple of other great things. And as always, if you have questions, feel free to put them in the chat. We'll make sure that we get to them before the end of the show. But without further ado, my good friend, Maggie, is here with us today.
Hi. So my name is Maggie Dysart. I've been appraising for about 26, 27 years. Family business. So my mother's an appraiser. My stepfather's an appraiser. He's now a reviewer at Chase. My mother teaches appraisal. So been around for a while. I've been mainly do lender work. I have in the past done other types but there's so much lender work right now. It's just not even worth it. But I do all sorts of things, estates and whatnot. But yeah, that's what I do.
So Maggie is an all-star appraiser. I'm just going to label you as that. So she's a veteran. She knows what she's doing. And whenever I have questions, I always go to her. But first, to kind of kick things off, with the market the way it is, it has changed, I believe, over the last couple of months. What I was seeing in December and January is totally different now as to what we're seeing in the beginning stages of March. So I'll go ahead and start with my end, and then Maggie's going to kind of chime in as to what she's seeing from her perspective and her point of view as an appraiser. So for me as a real estate agent, back in even just February and parts of January, we were seeing multiple offers, but I guess not on the same scale as they are now. We were starting to see a couple of appraisal waivers in there with the mix with multiple offers, but not really as hot as it is right now. And I think a lot of that has been driven by extreme levels of low inventory. I believe all of the price points under, let's just say $700,000 or $800,000 are at less than 1 month of inventory. The ones that are $1 million plus, I think they were closer to like 2 or 3 months of inventory, which is pretty rare when I was looking at the stats from the last month from one of the title companies. But it's crazy because there's such a high demand and a strong demand for properties that you end up competing very heavily with many other buyers. Probably not the same extent as what they're experiencing in Austin. In Austin, they probably need a fire hose because it's looking like another state down there.
Austin is quite different from the rest of the state, honestly, in many ways. Yes.
So what are you seeing from the appraisal perspective when it comes to your end of things?
As far as multiple offers, like you said, we've been seeing that for a little while, but it's definitely been kind of crazy. I guess the last couple of years, it's just gradually been ticking up as far as that goes. I mean, obviously we've had a few little setbacks at different times, but for the most part, it's just been ticking up. As far as getting the values or hitting the values, typically we can. I haven't had a whole lot of instances. I mean, it does happen, but for the most part, not so much. I will say get the appraisal last, get as many sales closed that at a higher, that get us right at the end, because that's when, if you're doing it right when the contract comes in, that's when I've been noticing it been happening less or not hitting
the mark. Yeah, because you're
that's what we're supposed to do. We don't appraise to a value, but but yeah, I will say that's number one. Do it as late as you can so we can get as many things closed as possible for good comps. And we're using the most recent data. I mean, we're not using anything from last, well, in most instances. There's always, but we're using the most recent data. The one I'm typing up right now, I think everything's from February and March. I mean, just closed. And then throwing in a pending sale and weighing it in our reconciliation. So, typically you give the most recent or the most similar or whatever, you reconcile it as to why you're weighing it one way or another. We're giving weight to the pending sales at this point, and we're calling the agents and saying, hey, so I know is it pending near list price? Because it all works better if we all work together is kind of I'm always willing to take data. I'm not one of those appraisers who gets offended by you saying, hey, I looked at these sales when, listing the property or anything like that. So I'm not opposed to the whole appraisal package, if you will, being left in the kitchen on the bar. That's fine with me.
Yeah.
Okay. What was the question again? We've talked a while.
Kind of the state of the market and where appraisals are falling in from your perspective.
Yeah, for the most part, we're hidden. For the most part, I will say some of the where I'm seeing more problems for me is in the custom, especially when they're adding things in and upgrades and things like that in new construction.
Okay.
That's where I'm seeing more problems. And builders, of course, know this and have nice little things written in there. That's where I'm seeing more issues for me.
Okay. I just had an appraisal come in. I tried to contest it a couple of times. And I know the lender was like trying to work with me, and I was like, we just need to get this because we were within. It fell short within $5,000, and I'm just like, okay, it's not 20 grand, it's not 10 grand.
Well, what was the percentage?
The percentage of
list price. I mean, was it like when you say $5 grand? Is it 1%? Where it was at $500,000?
No, it was a $260,000 home. And we offered $265,000, and they still weren't budging.
No, it was 2%.
So, okay, yeah. So they weren't budgeting. Get back to a creek. They didn't take that into consideration.
I was going to say, when I put in a couple percent as me as an appraiser, and I'm only speaking for myself as an appraiser, and I've been doing it a long time. But if I'm within a couple percent,
I know.
I always look at it as I'm not that smart. How am I to say that these two willing people who have negotiated a price, but I'm smarter than both of them, and that this is, when it's 2%, and again, like you're saying, if it was 20 grand, then it's like, just let it fall,
Yeah. For sure. But I was so surprised. The lender was surprised, but he wasn't, because he was still he had seen several of his recent sales. I mean, but they were like within 20 grand or 10 grand, and they weren't, giving any type of consideration for those. But he was hoping, like, it's only $5 grand. It backs to a creek. Come on,
I was going to say, I would have probably been, I mean, there are some rare occasions, but when you're within a couple percentages, there's usually wiggle room there. But
yeah, and
I wasn't the appraiser, I'm sure.
If you were the appraiser, it would have been awesome. But it's kind of like, I don't know. I have the same kind of feeling, I don't know. It's just the market has just gone up. Even in that neighborhood, I think this was really the first one in the neighborhood to really kind of go a little bit higher.
Breach that point. Yeah, I've been there. I sold that house.
You sold
my personal home.
So with that particular property, it had, for the neighborhood itself, it was an older neighborhood, in mid cities on the other side of town. And it was like the first one to kind of, nudge it up for that exact specific neighborhood. So I guess I can see where, and I looked at his comps too, and he was like, well, there's only really one comp there were two that were made it fall lower, and then the third one kind of made it look a little bit higher, and then he just, I don't know, he did his little math from there, and then he was just like, nope, this is it.
He just didn't bring it in.
Yeah, and the other thing too, the thing with this one that was a little bit difficult was this was when we were needing the rush because of the backlog, because of the winter storm. And so he's probably thinking, already did it. It's done. I'm not doing anything else with this one, guys.
You're probably right.
Yeah.
You're probably right.
I'm pretty sure that's probably a lot as to what happened.
We had so many disaster inspection reports to do.
Oh,
we had to go back to everything that we'd appraised that hadn't closed. We had to go back to. So yeah, it was kind of a busy time.
Yeah, so I can see where, probably tensions were high and people were exhausted on the other side of it, and that's probably what happened. Michelle, she's one of my regulars. She's saying, this is great information. Haven't seen anyone bring on an appraiser to their live streams, and she is just loving it. So thank you, Michelle, for those kind words. And as always, if any of you have any questions, please put them in the chat. We'd love to hear your questions. We have an appraiser here ready to go, ready to answer any questions that you have. So feel free to do that. And after the fact. So if you're watching this on replay and you have a question that's appraisal related, feel free to put that in the comments and I can reach out to Miss Maggie and we can coordinate something from there if we need to. So we're here for you guys. So the market has gotten a little bit, I feel like, out of hand, even in outside of the city as well. So outside of the city, I'm seeing multiple offers. There was a property in Palmer that we tried to win in multiple offers for. I think we went 20 over asking. We only guaranteed 5. Of that 20, but it would still be an opportunity for that seller to get 20. And then I think we also offered $5,000 towards their closing costs. So at the end of the day, if it would have appraised for that amount, then the seller would have gotten $25,000 extra added on to their closing.
Yeah, right.
Netted that much, much more for their property, and we still weren't the best of the best.
Really? I was going to say what.
So, and this is in Palmer. Palmer is like in Ellis County. It's not in the city.
No.
It was a small 2,000 square foot home in Ellis, on an acre.
Right.
And yeah, somebody just I don't know what they did. I think the listing agent said that it came down to the appraisal waiver. And so I'm guessing someone went in there and said, you know what, we're going to give you this much money and we're going to waive the appraisal. So no matter what, we're paying the difference. And for me, that's a very risky thing to do.
And I was going to say, those are the ones that are typically not coming in.
Yes.
Yeah. Those are the ones. It's like, well, they knew. Yeah.
Right. So, yeah, and it's kind of a gamble, and it was a harder property as well. It wasn't in the city. It's kind of like there was nothing comparable that I could kind of compare it to that had the same kind of acreage, that had the same,
It wasn't in a little subdivision of 1 acre. It was all by its little self.
It was like on a
county road.
Yeah, county road strip kind of thing.
Yeah.
And so no recent sales to kind of go off of. I talked to another agent that works close to that area, and he's like, I've seen maybe 5,000 over asking, but nothing like 20 grand over. And I was blown away. And we were praying for, praying for them, them and everything too. Cause they had to wait like a couple of days. It was one of those, let's wait 5 days to collect all the offers. And, my people are just like on pins and needles trying to get into that, hopefully get into that property. But there's going to be something else for them.
Now, is the supply really low up there?
You mean down there in Palmer?
or down there?
In Palmer and Red Oak, I would say for that type of a property that's on an acre, probably. If it was a little bit less than an acre, I think there were a little bit more, because when we were, they're kind of looking at properties, that's kind of what they saw. This was the only one with this amount of land for this, 4-bedroom home that they really saw that they could see themselves in. And, but yeah, the big thing was the land, because all the other ones didn't have an acre attached to them.
Now, what I have noticed is secondary homes. Now, have you been seeing that? I mean, was this their primary home residence, not their vacation home? Because vacation homes are now happening quite a bit outside of the city. People are now working from home more often, wanting to be able to get away without getting on a plane, or, so I've noticed little pops out in the lake communities as well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I could see it by the lake. This wasn't by a lake. It was just the convenience from downtown too was another big factor. I think it was like 30 minutes. And she, my client needed to be close to downtown because that's where her new job was. So it was just a kind of a win-win for them all the way around. And so we were trying to secure that for them, and
didn't happen.
It blew my mind. I'm just like, this is Palmer. It's not anything spectacular or out of the ordinary or special. I mean, I grew up in Scurry, which is not that far away. I mean, maybe an hour away from Scurry itself in Kaufman County, which is right next to Ellis County, which is where Palmer's located. But it's south of Dallas, but it's about 30, 45 minutes outside of Dallas. And then further west, you have Red Oak over there, which is growing. I feel like Red Oak is growing. Even in new construction, there's been quite a bit, I think, happening over there in that community.
Absolutely.
But new construction wise, I know that this year specifically, you've been dedicated to only appraising for new construction, which is good. But tell us a little bit about what you're seeing with the builders and the appraisals with them, because we're seeing price increases, and I know that you're seeing them too on a pretty regular basis. So tell us a little bit about that.
A very regular basis. They can't build them fast enough. They absolutely cannot. Well, and they can't get the appliances in the end. It's very frustrating. We've had the final inspections. I've got like 4 sitting on my desk because the appliances just haven't gotten here. We're still seeing backlogs of things of that nature in new builds. Excuse me. But they're on a very regular basis raising their spec cost, or their it's not the right word, their base price on a regular basis. And like I was saying, if you're getting too many upgrades, when people are putting a lot of stuff in, we're seeing a little more difficulty at getting the values or hitting the values when they build just a spec house, it's already built and ready to go. Those are usually doing just fine because we have enough recent sales data and they're pricing them right at the most recent sales. Okay. And do wait on the appraisals on everything until the very end if you can, so that we can get as many things closed as possible. So like I'm finishing up one right now that they actually were under contract in like September or something, and they're just finishing up the house. Well, they just ordered the appraisal. I'm coming in 20 higher, easy, like for the same house, that they were selling. So wait till the very end to get the appraisal. That's what I'm going to say. And yes, builders are raising costs constantly. And this isn't most all price ranges that I'm saying it.
Yeah, no, all price ranges. A friend of mine that works out of New Braunfels, he's a real estate agent there. He was saying he was seeing increases about $2,500 every week for the new construction out there, and that range is probably in the $300,000 to $400,000 price range out there for New Braunfels, which is in between Austin and San Antonio for geographical purposes, those of you not from Texas. So it's happening not only here in Dallas, but it's everywhere.
Sure.
And there, in some instances too, I'm hearing that appraisals are falling short. And in that case, there's two different possibilities, right? Either the builder adjusts the price, or the buyer has to come up with the difference in that type of situation. So
now, most builder contracts, not all, state very clearly that the contract price and the appraised value have nothing to do with what you're paying. I mean, like you're paying the contract price, not the appraised value. Builders don't really negotiate typically, not typically. They have a pretty set price, Now, you can, when it's a specs that's been sitting there forever. Don't get me wrong, you can negotiate. But when you're, building a house, or they're not negotiating anything. They're, this is what this costs. They'll give you, I say that. They always give you that incentive. You get, $23,000 worth of things that when you go to pick out all your stuff, but that's what the house costs.
Right.
You can upgrade it from there. But yeah, it's not, it's like when people tell you, oh, we're getting our appraisal for free. And I'm like, okay. And I'm like, it's in, on the line that says appraisal, it's going to have a 0. That doesn't mean you're getting the appraisal for free. It just means you're not being charged on the appraisal line for an appraisal. But,
So you haven't seen builders go too crazy with price when it comes to shortages with the appraisal, or have you been seeing a little bit of that too?
No, they're going pretty crazy with the prices, but the market's supporting it right now.
Okay.
Yeah. I mean, they're going to, if they can get more money, they're going to take more money. I mean, hello.
Right. Right. I just, worry about those instances where you're, locked in for 8 or 9 months with new construction. And then, at the end of the day, you're about to close and the builder's like, we need to bring an extra 20 grand to closing. And you're like,
no.
Okay.
No, you're locked in. No, there's no.
Okay.
Contract's a contract.
So as they're increasing the prices, it's supporting the older values back in September.
Right.
Okay.
So even though, I'm appraising one that went under contract in September, I'm appraising it as of today.
Okay.
Because it's as of the effective date.
Okay.
So what I'm saying is when you're, excuse me, I had somebody order one the other day, and when I called the builder, he said, we haven't even drywalled. And I called the lender back and I said, I recommend. But it would be best at this point to wait a little while. I mean, I'm not saying wait where I don't even have to do a final. I mean, go ahead, because you don't ever want to wait until the day before there's something crazy. Mm-hmm. But wait until we're getting really close to closing. We have, we've got a week or 2 out. The builder still hasn't got the appliances in, or maybe the carpet, but everything else is done, or not the soft. That's when most of the stuff, value-wise, has closed that I need, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
But it sounds like I'm appraising to a value the way I'm talking. That is not what I'm saying. I'm just saying, as somebody looking out for their clients, the best thing to do would be to recommend that.
So if they stop doing the increases, is that going to affect the appraisals of homes that are of past contracts? Like, because there's got to be a point to where all of this is going to kind of slow down.
I keep thinking that. I thought that like 3 years ago.
Okay. But I mean, we weren't seeing increases.
Not like this. Not like this.
Yeah.
It wasn't like this.
It
has gotten and ironically, to me, when looking at the COVID effect, if you will, of people like me and you who can work from home, who can continue on, and we're essential in our own way, but can keep doing this. We've realized that we need more space. And thank goodness I actually moved to this house before COVID, because the whole reason we moved was because I needed walls. I had the second child and I needed walls. I no longer had an office, and I was in the game room and the kids were around, and it was horrible. And I'm like, I have to have walls. And so we moved. I am so blessed that I have walls right now. I am so happy that I bought this house because it had a home office.
I'm so glad we did that too, because I feel like we just missed it as well. We purchased in 2018, and I mean, the market was pretty even kill at that point, I think, for the price point that we got our home at, and we didn't have to compete with anyone else, although it was starting to kind of trend that way. It was, getting close to summertime and everything. But I feel like we were very fortunate to get into more space, because we were in 1,700 square feet, and we had 4 kids.
I know.
Now we're in like 2,800 square feet, and it makes a huge difference. And I'm just so thankful for that, being able to have that extra space.
So we do have that market happening. We have the people who are saying, oh, now I need more space. I still have my job. Like, I'm still making income and whatnot, hasn't changed dramatically or whatever. And so, but I need this home office. So they're all upgrading. Yep. And then we have the other where they still haven't, people haven't made their mortgage payments, like in December and January. We've got the moratorium still happening. We really don't know what that's going to be like or how that's going to change in the future as far as foreclosures.
I mean, they extended that one too.
They did. They just extended it through the end of March or April.
I heard June.
Okay, June. Yeah. And then we just had the stimulus package. We also don't know how that's going to affect the market. Obviously, I can't predict the future.
Right.
In the past, things have happened that I thought when COVID happened that I was in big trouble real estate wise, and I wasn't. Mm-hmm. I don't know what the stimulus is going to do. I don't know what the moratorium being lifted, or if they're going to lift it at some point. Yeah. Thankfully I've got a couple of rental properties, but they're paid off. I'm not, and although they got a little behind, obviously I'm not a mean person. They kept trying. I didn't want to do anything. I was like, just keep trying. But there are a lot of landlords that aren't in that position, that their mortgages aren't getting paid. So there's that, I did hear that investor-wise that there's a big in the rentals around colleges, that investors are going in and buying up little rentals around colleges because they're predicting that people are moving off campus in the future.
Huh. That makes sense. There's a friend of mine that in my neighborhood, he was going to do that. He was going to buy a big, fourplex or whatever right next to University of North Texas. Mm-hmm. And that was going to be his big time investment, because, kids always rolling in and out of the investment property. I wouldn't be surprised if a couple of investors decided to sell their rental and exchange it for something else. I know that's something that I'm thinking about. We're thinking about exchanging it for a vacation rental, because right now it's just there, and we're not breaking even. We're breaking even barely sometimes. It just depends.
I will tell you, when I bought mine, I put them on 10-year notes. Yeah. And I made absolutely no money for 10 years. In fact, it cost me some money some months and stuff. Yeah. I took out a loan. They were both needed work from the beginning. And so I took out an investor loan for more, did the work on the properties and everything. But I basically broke even like the 3rd and 4th year, most of the rest of them, but here and there were repairs and stuff. But once they were paid, once those 10 years were over, it was just like, what a blessing, Yeah. Just as far as cash flow, it's kind of nice.
Yeah. I mean, it's still up in the air, because, I don't know what's going to happen by the end of this year. it is a pretty hot market right now. But then, it recycles, every so many years too. So it's not like we'd always be, it goes up and down. So it's not like it's never going to ever come back and be a seller's market again if anything shifts. But, I just kind of wanted also to have an investment that, my family and I could take advantage of too. So that
Well,
was
in vacation properties and second homes are really big right now because
Right.
people aren't wanting to fly. They're
Yep.
wanting something that's somewhat nearby and now everybody realizes, or depending, if you're buying a second home, you can afford a second home, then your job probably is fine, and you've learned to work from home like so many people.
Right.
So I think that's really changed how people look at vacationing, just buy a home where you can get to it and get away from people and have your own space or whatever and have your relatives over or whatnot.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I'd like a vacation home.
Yeah. Well, I think that too, like when you were talking a little bit about people needing more space, I'm seeing larger homes like go a lot quicker. Usually the larger homes would move a lot slower than the smaller ones. And that would give, if you're moving from a smaller space to a large space, it would give you an opportunity to close out on this one and then, jump into your next one. Well, now it's just like, as soon as you get out of your first little house and try to jump into the next bigger one, you're competing against 20 different other people. And you're, hopefully maybe you have a lease back in place. But I think a lot of sellers are fearful still of that step. If they can't afford 2 mortgages, then they're kind of forced to sell their property, have some sort of short-term rental, situation in the interim until they do find that next property. And I think that's also partially probably inflating prices as well, because they're like, I have to be in something or I'm going to go crazy. I don't want to stay in an extended stay hotel for another week, So I can see how that's affecting people.
Well, and on top of that, right this very second, because of all the busted pipes and whatnot, there aren't a lot of places to rent. A lot of people moving in with people right now.
Right.
That was such a weird thing. I mean, there's just layers to the market, It's crazy how that affects things too.
So many things. So Michelle was saying, she was trying to give you a clue. She was saying it's the base price. That was from earlier. And then Gabriel, he's also on from time to time, but he said, Rebecca, you're the best. We love you. But he had a pretty good question. Let me kind of read this to you because it is pretty tiny. It says, living in Rockwall, Texas, behind the house I'm renting, a house was sold for $250,000, 4 beds, 4 baths, 3,600 square feet. And it was $350,000 in 2019. How can someone buy a house like this one? He said it doesn't look like it's a good deal. So what are your thoughts on that price jump for that property?
I concur. It does not look like a good deal. I will say there are things that happen to a home, like pools, pergolas, things of that nature. This year in particular, starting in June, of last year, in the prior year.
Yeah.
June, you could have an ugly kitchen and still sell your house if you had a pool and a pergola because everyone was hanging out outside, and they were like, we'll get to the kitchen. We just need outdoor spaces where I don't have to wear a mask and I can hang out with people, and so outdoor spaces have a lot to do with it. 2019, the outdoor space might not have had nearly the effect that it does right now.
Yeah.
A lot. That's what I will say about a market that's going very, very quickly. Things that are negative about a property, like I just said, ugly kitchen, but even beyond that, things like backing up to a railroad track or a busy street or something like that is going to have a heck of a lot less of a market effect when there's such a low supply. So as an appraiser, because people will ask sometimes, well, this appraiser did this and this appraiser did, and then they made this kind of adjustment on the same type of, and I get that. We're all different.
Yeah.
So they did. But a lot of it can have to do with the specific timing. A railroad track might have no effect. And yet in 2019, it was an $18,000 effect. You know, it really, you know, location does make a difference, but timing makes a huge difference. It's the effective date. It's frozen in time. That's how we look at it as an appraiser, because, for instance, in an oddity, I had a banker friend of mine call up, and whenever he has properties that he has questions about, he'll call me. He's an underwriter and stuff, and ask me, or a reviewer, and ask me all these questions. So it had been, he said, well, it's this big, beautiful home. And he goes, it has this massive detached barn with this like kitchen and dance floor and all this stuff, like they're hosting parties. Loved him. All I did was Google it, and I immediately found out it had been a bed and breakfast and a hosting facility for weddings. Well, guess what? It'd been closed down since last March, you know, and he's like, so is it a commercial structure? Does it have value as commercial? And I said, well, it would have, but right this very second, when no weddings are taking place, because this was last summer, I was like, no, it doesn't have nearly the value it had, you know? Yeah, I mean, because he was like, can I do a residential loan? You know, is this a residential property? Highest and best use, very important. And I said, well, right now, the highest and best use is not a wedding facility. Yeah. Like, it's just not. So, you know, now later that year it would be, but the effective date lies in an exact moment in time.
The other thing that I was thinking about with his question was more or less on the inside of the property. I mean, if they rehab that property to the nines, I could see where that would be a game changer as well, for the property. And like you said, was it because buyers now versus buyers in 2019, like you said, they're going to have different priorities. Their priority now is to find something, right? Anything, right?
And
backs to commercial property, I don't care. I just need a house.
And he said Rockwall. So it most likely is looking at the price range. It's probably one of the newer homes, you know, Stone Creek or whatever, you know, and it probably sold as new construction in 2019. Yeah. And now they've done the, you know, they've put up the shiplap in the dining room wall, and they've done, you know, added the pergola. Yeah. So yeah. And to get a home built right now that's not a spec, you know, not just sitting there waiting on you, which is really hard to find. You're waiting. They need the house now, you know? So the ones that I'm seeing, in Devonshire and Forney and different places, the ones that are only a year or two old, the agents will be putting them on, you know, 10 or 20, 10, 15,000 less than the new construction. And boom, I mean, multiple. And it's, you know, 15 higher.
Yeah. No, I get that, pricing it on the high edge and the high end of things, and then you still get multiple offers as a result. Because if the market's going to tell us where the value is too. Yeah. Because if you're priced really high and the market comes back and gives you all these offers, but they're all at list price or lower, then you know that you're priced a little bit too high. If the market comes back is showing 10 over, 15 over, 20 over, then you know that the market is telling you something different. So,
well, and again, we talk, new construction's been going up and up and up. And not most of what's in Rockwall, a lot of what's in Rockwall is newer construction right now that, you know.
So he's saying that the house was built in 2003.
Oh. Caruth Lakes. Whale Run.
She's giving you subdivisions, Gabriel. we don't need the address, just subdivision.
But yeah. I work a lot in Rockwall.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, at the shores.
Oh, I like the shores. Shores are nice. I don't live in the shores, but the shores are very nice.
Yeah.
I just hate paying homeowners association dues.
Yeah.
And that's a personal thing. And probably there's great things about homeowners associations. You don't live next to the house that's painted their house trim purple, which is great. Because I have had friends that when I've pulled up and I'm like, oh my gosh, when did your neighbor do that? But I just don't like paying homeowners association dues, especially when they can go up every year. It's a personal thing.
Yeah. Yeah.
But the shores are wonderful. And I believe that it is incredibly difficult to find a house already built in Rockwall right now.
Yeah.
Let me rephrase that, under 350 and under is just crazy hard here.
Yeah.
And in fact, even in budget areas, we had LGI and History Makers and, more budget friendly builders. Even there, just their basic is 220. I mean, and for like nothing, in some cases, a 2-bedroom, a 2-2. I'm seeing those go in the 2, just like in Seagoville. All right. Yeah. But people are paying it. And I'm having, and as an appraiser, my personal rule when it comes to new construction, I use a builder sale preferably through MLS. Mm-hmm. I use a competing builder sale. I use a pre-owned home, and I typically use a listing. I might use a second builder sale as well of my own personal builder if one's MLS and one's not, that sort of thing. But that's how I try and say, look, it's not just my builder. They're doing it here. They're doing it in pre-owns. They're doing it everywhere. And so that's how, as an appraiser, you balance and show, you come in from these directions, all different directions, come to the middle. Then nobody can argue with you. Then underwriters don't bother you.
Yeah, for sure. So he's saying that he $48 a month at the shores. It's not terrible, I guess.
So
what he's
saying? So a car payment a year?
A car payment a year. She just doesn't like HOAs, Gabriel.
Again, there's wonderful reasons for HOAs. I'm sure my children would love it if I lived in a community with a pool. Okay. Yeah. They would be very pleased with me. Yeah. It's me. My sister lives in Caruth Lakes, or not Caruth Lake. She lives in Quail Run, pardon me, on the north side of Caruth Lake. And their HOA, I will tell you, she moved in, and this was during the fall, meaning of the market, the fall. So we got a foreclosure. Look what I did for my sister, and with bad carpet. It had been a rental, but we got it backed up to the lake, 5-bedroom, 3-bath, so that was the way to go, right? Yeah. Oh, shoot. Where was I going?
You were talking about
something.
HOAs.
The first month she lived there, it had been a rental and a foreclosure. She got 2 letters from the HOA about her weeds.
Oh.
Not the length of her grass, the amount of weeds in her yard.
Wow. I don't think that would be the HOA for me.
So that's what I mean. Those are the things that kind of bother me about HOAs, but
that's why it's good to read the bylaws before so you know what you're getting into.
Well, and 99% of it also has to do with the fact that my husband's a carpenter and builds things all the time, and HOAs don't let you do that in your driveway.
Yeah, that's true too.
So it all depends on what you're looking for. But I told my agent when I was buying the house what I was looking for. And I didn't want an HOA. I wanted a flat driveway. So my husband wouldn't complain about everything being unlevel when he was trying to build things.
Right. No, a friend of mine, I think their driveway's inclined, and they're in Sunnyvale. And she would always say that it was so annoying. Like, she's like, I need a flat driveway.
Well, my sister's husband's the same way. He likes to tinker, mechanic-y. He likes to tinker on the car and everything. Incline. Hates it.
Yeah. Yeah. So Michelle has a question for us too. She says, I'm trying to get an LGI for 308,000 in Newark. I think that's closer to the outskirts of, is that on the Fort Worth side of town?
I was going to say, I don't know where that is.
I think that's closer to Fort Worth. So Michelle, you need to elaborate if you can, if you're still on. And then my everyday wife life, she says, hi, I'm from Florida. No HOAs for me. So she agrees with you on that HOA stuff.
Everybody's different. I'm telling you. I mean, and then you get these, they have the new complex actually in Rockwall they're called site-built condos. Have you ever dealt with those? Where they're homes? They're individual detached homes, but they're labeled as condos because you don't own the outside of your walls. Okay, site-built condos are what they're called. We put them on we put them on a regular form and just call them the condo. But it's wonderful because for certain people and like for retirement people,
right?
They don't have that. You lock it and you leave. You take your little dog and you go visit your grandparents, and it doesn't matter. Your
grandkids
picked up everything.
You're older. You're not visiting grandparents. You're probably visiting
grandchildren.
Yes.
I said grandkids, didn't I?
I said grandparents. I guess if they're young grandparents, maybe they still have grandparents. Maybe it would work out. I don't know. So Michelle said that she's that one's in Northwest Fort Worth. So I was pretty spot on.
Yeah, and LGI. I've done a ton of work for LGI. It's a good product because it is budget friendly. Right now, it is so hard to find new construction that's under $350 right now. Yeah. It's just impossible to find things under $350. And it has been for a while, unless you're really I'm appraising stuff in Balch Springs and Pleasant Grove for $250, that are small houses.
Wow. That's crazy to think that. I mean, because that's just, Mesquite, the market in Mesquite has really, really exploded over there. Man.
Yeah.
Values have really gone up in Mesquite.
They've gone up everywhere.
Yeah. I would say,
I can't think of a place that they're declining right now. I really can't. No, I'm being serious. I mean,
yeah, it's true. Maybe in like, further north of Van Alstyne, maybe like in between Van Alstyne and Sherman, there may be some places.
Well, they're not declining.
Yeah.
They might not be increasing a whole lot, but they're not declining. And of course, yes, the closer you are to urban, it usually they're increasing more rapidly.
Right.
But it's just amazing how much new construction is going up. I mean, in the outskirts, yes, Forney's still on the buffer, but in Terrell, in Segoville, there is just so much.
Scurry, I know they were trying to do a development. One of my friends that still lives there that I went to high school with, they're like, no, don't. That's what makes Scurry so awesome is that we don't have this like development with an HOA, that's just kind of what makes Scurry and Rosser unique. And I think they still built that over there. So that's nothing new. And I know that they're also out there in Scurry and a little bit of the outskirts. I'm seeing a lot more of manufactured homes that, will have developers buy up some land, and then they'll put manufactured homes on on every,
for $260,000.
Yep.
Not kidding you. I've got to do a final tomorrow.
Yep.
And I'm up in Princeton in the
little lake,
the part that dangles, and it's called, starts with a B. Anyways, down in there.
Yeah.
And, it's a nickname. It's still Princeton.
Okay.
But they just picked up a little development, and they put in real streets. I mean, it's concrete. It's not gravel. We've got in street lights. We have all of that. But I'm on. I tried to close the door, but let's see, it was, I'm doing one that's like 1,800, 3-bedroom, 2-bath, 2 livings, 1 dining, 1 acre, driveway, no garage, and it was like 260, and the other one was like 2,100, 2,200, 4-bedroom.
Yeah.
And it had a 2-car garage, and it was like 280 or 290. It was crazy.
Wow.
But they're selling. I mean, and there's sales. And again, as an appraiser, I have sales from outside. I've got a pre-owned around the corner.
Right. You're looking at everything.
They're selling.
Yeah.
Manufactured.
Yeah. Manufactured.
Yeah. It's amazing. Yes. The market is wonderful. Great time to make money.
So Michelle's saying a back patio adds value. I know it's something you briefly talked about, but I wanted that to be kind of our
last okay. As far, let me spit it out. Yes, a patio adds value. When you're talking about like the little 4x4 pads or 3x3 pads, when you just open the door and all you have is a little pad, it doesn't sell the house real well. Yes, especially this past year, a lot of times people won't spend the money to do that type of upgrade in new construction because, we'll get to it later. We'll do our landscaping and do it all together. Right now, this past year with COVID and everything else, those really are adding value right now. Exterior is really adding value. Have you seen that, Rebecca?
Yeah.
As far as
absolutely. I mean, even before, I want to say, because I helped my sister-in-law sell their property, and I think that was right after COVID had hit. And that, I think we were in the summertime of 2020, and their yard helped sell their house. The home was only 2 years old. And it was like one of the last ones. They were in the process of selling the Model 2 at the same time, but it didn't affect, theirs because theirs was so much smaller than the Model. But they had a beautiful like side yard, and my brother-in-law had put in like some pavers and stuff in the back, and just really pretty cover as well.
Yeah.
It was he was good. He had a good honey-do list. That she put him to work.
I have one of those.
They used their fence too, because they owned a big part of the side of the lot, and so they extended their fence over. And oh my goodness, that side yard is huge. I mean, you could have had a little soccer game.
Dog run. Well, no, you just cross fence it. Then you got the dog poop in one area.
Well, you could, but yeah. But
that's what I would do.
That's what you would do. So yes, it does add a lot of value. So
well, and that's the other thing with the more mature landscaping. When I'm looking, like again with the new construction, when it's the pre-owns that are only a couple years old, but their landscaping is more mature. It just is. In some cases, they've done a lot more stuff, and it makes a difference. Even though you're not being able to pick out every little item in your house, which we tend to say people are willing to pay a premium for new construction in order to do that. But because there's so little product, it's not as, again, people are upgrading things that we can't cover, so it's not, things are moving very quickly.
Yeah.
We don't have time to build the house.
Right. And that's kind of what my everyday wife life was saying. We were told they can't start until August, and that doesn't surprise me either. A lot of they're only allowed to, in a lot of cases, they're only allowed to write 2 contracts a month, and they're just kind of doing a steady flow of, first you go in, you take a look. If you like it, then you set up an appointment with the salesperson to sign the contract. And then, and in some builders, they're like, we haven't even designated the lots yet. Like, we're going to have to wait, and we're going to have to, divvy up all the lots first. And then once the lots are ready, in some cases they'll start pre-selling the lots. In other cases, they'll say, nope, we can't even sell anything.
No.
we're not going to pre-sale anything.
No,
So
Blue Ridge was on a hold. The contract holds, the selling holds. The last time I went up there to do a final, I went up to the model to get the key, and yeah, they were on a selling freeze. They weren't there. It's like, oh no.
yeah, and that's been difficult as well, trying to get a hold of the builder to see, are you still building? Do you still have inventory? Like that in itself has been so extremely difficult for me, from my perspective, because they're not on MLS. They're all the, they have that new home source, whatever website. It's terrible. I don't like it. It's not user friendly. They don't update it at all. You might as well, you're better off probably just Googling new construction in, and then insert your city name right there and seeing what pops up. Give them a call, and maybe go to their website and see if there's still some traction there. I mean, that's usually the best that you can do. Or you're in your car and you're driving and try to say, oh, look, there's new construction stuff. It's on the car. Yeah. The salesperson, are they there? Oh, no, it says by appointment only. And then you call the number for appointment only, and then no one's there to answer the phone. So it's kind of the bad situation of we don't have homes to sell you, so we're not going to follow up with you. So sorry.
Yeah, they don't. Yeah. It's pretty sad. And I've even had, with the COVID slowed down a lot of production of a lot of things, significantly appliances and parts for appliances and things of that nature. I've gotten to where I went to a property. I can't tell you how many houses I've been to that the only thing that was left was appliances, and they were sitting there waiting for weeks. I've got one I'm supposed to call on. The range was supposed to be in last week. Still not there. I went to a property and I got there, and they were supposed to be doing their final walkthrough. I'm supposed to be doing the final, and the final walkthrough, realtor or whatever, DR Horton, was standing there on the phone, just shaking his head and freaking out. It was their last house in the subdivision. This was Thursday morning at 9 a.m. He was supposed to meet me to unlock it. They had taken down the camera in the street Tuesday night. The appliances were gone Wednesday. Well, when he got there Thursday morning. And I looked at him, I go, it was another builder. He goes, oh, I know it was. You should see how they took them. And I said, what do you mean? He goes, they removed the doorknob. They disturbed nothing. They unhinged the door. They went out through the garage. They touched nothing. They didn't ruin nothing. They just took the appliances. He goes, I'm like, yeah. Yeah, builders are stealing appliances. It's that bad.
Goodness. Wow. That's a good story to kind of end the night with.
I've got lots of ones, but anyway, we'll end there.
Yeah, well, that's a good way to end. So thank you guys for joining us tonight. If you have any questions for Maggie, and we didn't get to them, or you think of them later, feel free to put those in the comment section below, and I'll try to send her messages to try to get answers to those if I can't answer them directly. But thank you all, and have a good rest of your Tuesday.
Thanks, Rebecca.
Bye.